This whole thing is absolutely turned into a monster. When Rachel first contacted me a couple of months ago in London, we were going to Skype this. And we're going to Skype it to 30 people. I'd been thinking about coming over this year anyway, because I was due a visit to my parents and family. And I thought, well, let's just come over, because I don't particularly like Skyping. So with Rachel and Melanie's marketing and all the rest of it, it's kind of grown from 30 people to 200 to 600 or something. And it's kind of, let's put it this way, it's my little 15 minutes of fame. Yeah. And I'm going to stretch it out for about an hour, if I can. But I need your help. I'm going to just break this thing up into 3 parts. I'm going to talk about the competition, a little bit about the competition, my own experience with it, it's just my own views, and a tiny bit about the history and what's involved. Then I'll talk about figure the tail picture and how I came to catch that picture and what it's done for me. And then at the end, I trust we'll have time for a few more pictures. I'll just go through a bit of philosophy, if you like, and why I do what I do. And at the end of each section, I will field a few questions. It's up to you how you want to help me pad this out to an hour. Yeah. The competition. Now, this is the BBC Wildlife Photography of the Year competition, as you know. It started in about 1965, 64, and it attracted about 600 entries. And before very long, it became one of the most prestigious competitions in the world. Today, or last year, 2011, it attracted 42,000 entries. I think there was one year previously which got a few more. This latest year, 2012, has got 48,000. 95 countries, 42,000 entries. It's regarded as one of the most prestigious competitions in the world, and certainly the most prestigious wildlife photo competition in the world. There are 42,000 entries from about 95 countries. They all get judged, obviously. It's a big, big task. And the first part is a field of judges who will just go through all the images and get rid of all the ones that have no show. And we get down, just the year they got down to 17,000 entries. 17,000 entries that had a show, basically. So that's the semi-final round. And then from those 17,000, we got some top international judges will get that down to 1,000. And that's considered to be the final round. That's the final round. So if you get in the final, then that's an incredible achievement. Even if you don't progress from that, it's a wonderful thing to put on your CV. From 1,000, you get down to 108. 108, I believe, is a number that's in the exhibition now. From the top of my head, there's something like 90 photographers, because some had a couple in there. For 108, in my case, we got down to 1. And before I go into that a little bit more, I just wanted to say that when they judge these competitions, it's a small world out there, and people know each other, and people know what other people are doing. The pictures are judged blind. A judge looks at the picture, they have no idea of who took the picture. They don't have the caption, they only got the title to go by. So they try to be as unbiased as possible. So it's judged blind, and so they don't know the names of the people and so forth. What they're looking for, and I suppose it strikes us as quite obvious, but what they're looking for is something that strikes you as being very different. The judges have looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of images, and they see the same thing over and over again, and what they need to see is something that's a little bit different. And that's hard to do. something that these wildlife photographers have seen. We want to show a wildlife photographer something that they hasn't seen before. And, you know, to be honest with you, you've got all these professionals and you've got amateurs and that. They've all stand a good chance of that. It's all an equal chance of that. There are some subjects where they say they're off-ground, because like lions. I mean, lions have been done to death. Elephants, puffins in the case of the UK. And that's why when you look at if you're fortunate enough to have the books, you can go through the books and not see a single lion in the book, or an elephant, or something like that. You'll see something a bit different. But on the other hand, if you can get a picture of a common subject that will make the judges go, wow, all the better. I can remember a polar bear picture where you cannot see the polar bear's face, just legs. And that was on the portrait category. Yeah. There are 21 books so far up to this year. Although the competition started in 64, 65, the first book came out in 92, I think, 1992. And it's a wonderful collection to have. These books have been the single most inspiring thing for me. And I've been very fortunate to have got them from the bookshelf as they came out. And the first one I got was probably that one there. I thought it was the most amazing collection of photos I'd ever seen. And when I got that one, I just went and got the other ones. And I got each one since. And I never tire of them. If you want the whole collection, you can get them on, if you look on eBay, Amazon. But you will find that one especially, that one, and that one. And they go for hundreds of pounds each now. They're very hard to get. What's so amazing for myself is to have been inspired by these books for so long. And I know them very well. And to find out that last year I was going to be on one. I'm going to tell you about this picture. But the first thing I want to ask is, there are people who prefer to crop in camera, and there are some people who want to crop in post-production. Can I see how many people prefer or are in favour of cropping in camera? All right. If I was insistent on cropping in camera, I wouldn't be here now. I'm going to tell you what I think about that. I've never quite understood why people are so want to crop it in camera and get it right. If you're photographing something static like a bowl of fruit, then I can perfectly understand that. But some things move fast, and you can't do it. So you have to do a certain bit of license to create your composition after the fact, within reason, without cropping it, down to 10% of size or something like that. That's how we started. That's annoying, that leg. I just want to get rid of it. This was on a drive, at the end of a drive in the Masamoa. It's about 11 o'clock in the day. And at that kind of time, you're heading back to camp because activity is winding down. Everyone's going to sleep. It's too hot for the animals. They're just sleeping under a tree. The light's not very good usually because it's high in the sky and all the rest of that. But on this particular day, on the way back to camp, I saw the situation. There were about 8 giraffes about. And I saw this tail flick out. And I saw the one on the horizon, obviously. So I thought, there you go, there's a picture. Only if it would flick its tail out again. And it didn't for a long time. It felt like a long time, but I'm sure it was only 5 minutes. But when you've got a 400mm lens, which is a very, very heavy lens, it kind of stretches the time out, doesn't it? So I waited for the flick. And it flicked the tail out once, and I got one picture. I'm not really an advocate of, the machine gun style thing. I took one picture. And when I went back recently to have a look at my pictures to see how many of this I had, I was surprised to see I only had one. And I had one with the tail hanging down. when I came home, I looked at the picture, I thought it was a nice picture, and I put it aside for a little while. And then I thought, I'll just mess about with it for a bit. And this is where my argument about cropping comes in. I cropped it so. And in my view, it changes the whole dynamic of it. The original picture you see in the exhibition has got a little bit more on either side. The book is square. This is how I've chosen to go in between. I've got the leg, which has annoyed me. I kept it balanced. It looks balanced to me anyway. And I found a way to make it better to my eyes by applying the black and white treatment and toning. And it's done me really well. So I'll talk a bit about luck. When a lot of I'm good friends with a lot of wildlife photographers in the UK, and what's quite common practice for many of us is that we have a database, if you like, in a mind's eye collection of pictures which we want to achieve. I've got several. I've got elephant on a horizon and a sunset. I've got many. And when the elements of these things that are in your mind come together, you recognize this, and then you try to make it work. You get into position, you get all these giraffes are going to come together. I know it's going to happen. If you're prepared that way, then you have a wonderfully, a much better chance of achieving some great pictures. But this one was all luck. It was just spontaneous. I did not have that planned in my head. I did not have that planned in my head. It was a composition I never would have dreamed of. When you're becoming very, very familiar with a subject, for example, when I was, say, the first time I saw a giraffe, it was the most amazing things, to see these things in the wild, whether it be giraffe, elephant, anything like that. And you just take pictures of them, and they're all great pictures. Now, I'll be honest, I've been a bit spoiled. I've had a few trips down there, and I've seen many giraffes. So even subconsciously, you're looking for something a bit different, because you've also seen many pictures of giraffes. You're subconsciously looking for something different. You're looking for patterns, you're looking for shapes, you're looking for composition. And giraffe, I've found, is one of the most difficult things to photograph. And it's very hard to see a good picture of a giraffe, as far as I'm concerned, anyway, because they're so tall and gangly, and if they're far away, they're very difficult to isolate to the background. There's too many bushes and trees, and the only alternative is to get close. In this case, and I'll quite freely admit to it, I was lucky. He was on a plane, this guy was nearby, and there we are, this happened. You see? There we are. Before I go into it too much, I'm going to try to describe my objective for when I take pictures. And my objective is that I like to take a picture that would look good on my wall. And hopefully, if it would look good on my wall, it would look good on somebody else's wall. I've come into this relatively late in the sense that there are many photographers who have been doing this for many, many years, 10 years, 20 years. And they've built up a really big database of stock photography. And I'm honestly, where I'm standing now I'm not interested in that, because they've got their jump on me in there. But luckily for me, I feel it is what I like to do best. I've always had appreciated art, fine art, that kind of thing. And to do that, to do the photography, and to have an interest in wildlife, it's come together to do this, which is to make a picture that would look good on anybody's wall. There's a little thing that little bit of philosophy or motto, if you like, comes from a long way away, back in time, when I was young. And it was my father who said, if it looks good on the wall, it's a good picture. I always remember that from a long time ago. So to that end, I don't particularly make a lot of noise about pictures of animals eating other animals, because I don't see how that would look nice on my wall. They do make the paper sometimes. I do sell a few. but I like to think that there's more of a niche in the market, if that's the right word, for what I'm wanting to do. This is a crowd favourite. I took this 3 years ago. He's not roaring either. What he's doing, this is on a morning where nothing happened and we're going almost giving up hope of everything, and this guy came along. He was with a lioness, and it was a mating pair. And he's not roaring or yawning, he's scenting the female. It's called Flemen, if I'm saying that right. It's called Flemen. I mean, your household domestic cat does it. Almost a lot of animals do it. I'm certainly not in the practice of saying, here's my amazing picture of a lion roaring, because I'll get caught out. I'd like to keep things honest as well. This is one of very few pictures I have, probably one of two I've got for you today, that I've used a Photoshop with. I prefer Adobe Lightroom. I use Photoshop to do burn and dodge in the main. I'm finding I can do everything with Lightroom now, including burn and dodge. Photoshop is good for cloning and blurring and that, which I don't like to do. Sometimes, I must admit, I wonder if some of my other pictures could be improved, but with Photoshop, because there's a little bit more leeway for toning and stuff. This came about because I saw a picture of a black and white leopard by somebody else, and I thought I could try and do better. And in my mind anyway, I think I did. The colour one, to me, a black and white leopard, before I did this, wouldn't have been worth the effort. The colour of a leopard is amazing. This is another one where I'm not going to try and embellish the situation. That shaft of light across the eye was luck. It just happened. It just happened. When I'm toning, I'm a fan of duotone. And in there you have the brown, you've got blue. And when that works for some photos, like I think it does with this one, it works. This one was a finalist this year, and I had hopes for it, but unfortunately, there must be a lot of other better pictures. But, you know, you can't be too complacent, can you? This is the only other Photoshop one I have. This is one where I've employed a lot of darkroom burn and dodge. When you convert from colour to black and white, in Photoshop or Lightroom, you can control a certain amount of things with green channels and blue channels and red channels. And the green behind this, in the colour version, was a lot of dark green. So when I did the conversion, it went out black. And then I was able to do a bit more burn and dodge to get the effect that I wanted to get. It's a lone buffalo. It's long separated from his herd. He's very old. He's very irascible. And he took a couple of steps towards us, and we moved on. A lot of the black and white stuff I picked up as a young teenager was introduced by my father back then when we had a home darkroom. And I got an early understanding of it too, which I think it's important now. Picking up Lightroom and Photoshop without the traditional knowledge, I think it makes it a little bit harder. The other thing which my father introduced me to back then was introducing me to an old camera called an Agfa, I think it was. It was only manual. What f-stop does and what aperture does and what shutter speed does, and the effect of each one, and an ability to control your photograph in the sense of shutter speed and depth of field. I fear that there's a lot of people now with new cameras who haven't been introduced that way, and I honestly think they're missing out. They don't have the same control than if they had that same knowledge. This is Nkaringo. It's a mountain gorilla from Uganda. This is one of the few pictures I've got where I've made the tone blue. Now, when I'm toning stuff, I don't know what colour it's going to be until I've finished, because I find each picture accepts different treatment. Some can be a black and white, some can have a brown hue or blue hue and everything else. In my mind, the brown, say, like of the giraffe, didn't work. The blue kind of worked, and I got no real explanation why it works better than others, but the fact that, to my eye, I preferred it. To me, it's kind of like a metallic type thing, too. I also envisage a book or a gallery where all the pictures are the same colour. And because I prefer different tones, I think that pictures in a group come out look more attractive. This is a sentimental picture for me, because this is my first gorilla encounter in Uganda. And this was an ex-silverback, if you like. He wasn't the leader of the group anymore. He was 49 years old, which is old for a gorilla. And 6 weeks after we took his picture, we learnt that he died. There's a little bump here, like that. That's an injury. And he couldn't eat properly. It probably contributed to him dying. So it is kind of special for me in that way. But the pun is not intentional, but I like simple, clean lines. I don't like clutter. Just me. I don't like clutter. If there was a zebra on the horizon, I wouldn't be showing you this now. If there was trees on the horizon, I probably wouldn't be showing it to you now. I like nice, clean pictures which are not complicated. The temptation to clone something out is great, but I've so far resisted. Zebras pose this way because it's for protection. They can see either side of them. 2 or more zebras look to a predator like it's one entity, not like one single creature, one entity. It's been said that they also pose that way because the tails keep the flies out of each other's faces too. If you're familiar with zebras, you probably have seen them do this before. On this particular occasion, something attracted your attention and the one turned his head, and I was pleased with that. I'm only showing you this one because I like him. As you see, I called him Bedhead. He was sleeping. Lions sleep 23 hours a day. They're frustrating to photograph. The best time to catch anything in like this in Africa or wildlife, especially with cats and things, is dawn and dusk when they're up and about doing stuff. But you're just under a tree otherwise, sleeping and dozing like any other cat. This guy was lying flat out. We drove up. He put his head up for about 3 seconds. He didn't look too happy with us. And he put his head back down again. This is just one illustration of a picture I had in my mind's eye. I've always wanted my own lion coming at me. I know that I've got some friends who have their own take on it. I wanted mine. And as you can see, I got mine. The most common question I get asked is, how far away were you? And he was a long way away. He was probably, again, where that wall is maybe. But they're difficult to take pictures of like that because they don't walk towards the vehicle. I was in a vehicle, obviously. They don't walk to the vehicle. They go up to the side. They don't walk they try to go around it. So to catch them head on was quite satisfying. There's something else I want to say about lions' eyes. I've long been fascinated with lions' eyes. There's nothing quite like a wild lion looking at you in the mirror. And there's no zoo lion that I'm aware of that can do the same thing. It's quite a thing to experience. Now, I wasn't going to include this one, but I'm going to. But the reason why this is different from anything else is this is captive. Now, I try not to make too much of noise about... I like to promote the fact, I suppose, that my pictures are wild. But the important thing is that captive animals are real animals too. I fear that gets too frequently ignored. This is an injured vulture in a rehabilitation centre in South Africa. He could not fly, and it was in best interest to keep him where he was. And it's a picture I've long been very happy with, and it's a shame to hide it because it's captive. And I reminded myself that he's a real animal. You know, he deserves it, probably anything, if anything, more than any wild animal. Now, there's another one I nearly didn't put in, but I'm going to. I'm going to take a chance on it. Does anyone know what's wrong with it? Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. What it's doing, it's breaking all the rules of composition that you're traditionally taught. It's looking away from the centre of the frame. It's looking away from it. I mean, you're supposed to have things looking into space. And there's a space on this side, but he's looking away. I suppose what the space is doing is telling you a lot about its environment. Also, what I did in this case is, back to your question, is I got the camera out of the car. I was in the vehicle. But what we're doing here, we've got our camera on a pole or a monopod. And you know, you stick it on that, and you've got a remote control on it, and you put it out the vehicle so that it touches the ground. And you use a wide-angle lens. And hopefully you get the composition you're looking for. Because it's, I think, from the top of my head, about 35 millimeter wide angle, I think it's about as far away from me as the front row of seats. But as I said, he's in a vehicle, so he's quite safe. I did the same with that. And to be honest, I've had a lot of fun with this monopod thing upside down at the vehicle. And it takes a bit of practice, and you get lots of cut-off heads and all sorts of rubbish, you know, grass in the background and all whatnot. But occasionally, when you're just taking a few pictures, a nice one comes out of it. This one lends itself very well, in my mind, to black and white. The reeds there, to me, help it a lot. Again, it's moving away from the centre of the picture, but it doesn't worry me. Now, you know, the thing is with black and white, I would only make it black and white if I think if it improves on the colour. If I've got a colour picture and the colour picture is better than black and white, I'll keep the colour. There are some pictures where I can't decide. I think they're both equally good. I can't decide. Some people like the black and white one, and some people like the colour. I'm just going to talk a little bit about style, personal style. And there's a lot being said about trying to develop your own style. And from my experience, that hasn't happened to me. I think, more accurately, your style finds you. If you endeavour to take a picture you're happy with, your style will find you. I think if you're trying to develop a style, it might be a little bit too forced. This may not be to everyone's agreement, but it's just how I feel about it. I didn't know my style, but other people seem to. And my style was, again, what I said before with the zebra picture, simple lines and no clutter, and just, I'm a big believer in eye contact. And I wasn't aware of it, and somebody mentioned this out to me, and I looked at all my pictures and said, well, there we are, you know. So I think that's an important thing about style, just to take the pictures you want to take. I think that's the most important thing. Not so much for anybody else, but for yourself. You see, I've called it Love Struck. And the two best things about this picture, I like about this picture, is the eye and the title. This was the finalist last year as well. I had 3 in the final. This was the other finalist, one of the other finalists. It's a technique that I've employed before, where I've looked for a subject and another subject, back and forth, and rendering the foreground one out of focus. It's a thing, another image I've had in my mind's eye. When I say I've got an image in my mind's eye and I want to achieve it, I'm not saying that it's successful. I'm probably successful 1 out of every 10 times I try it. In this case, it worked, and it came out really well for me. It's a really good example of a lion's eye and the intensity they can show. It's just another example of a simple picture. The thing I want to say about this one is that for my pictures, I try to get as low as I can, low as I possibly can. If I could get out of the vehicle, I would, but I'm not allowed, but I will get really low, right down, wind the window right down, get down low. There are so many people I notice when they are in the same situation as me, when I took that picture, standing up, taken from the roof. Because they're doing that, they've lost the horizon. They've got all this grass in the focus in the background, and me, it looks messy. That horizon is very important to that picture because it gives it a sense of space. And I couldn't achieve that if I was high, but I was low. I think we know all about the cat on the kitchen floor effect. Where you take a picture of your cat like that, and it's got dirty floor. But if you get right down low, it changes the whole dynamic of it. You can see the space, it creates a sense of space, you can see where it is, more of its environment, that kind of thing. I'm showing you this because it's nothing more than just, to me, a nice shape. S shape going on there, with the lioness looking her tail. This is the old one of mine. This is one of my first trips. It's in Amboseli in Kenya. What's happening is that this family of elephants is approaching us, and it's a single file line, and a calf somewhere in the middle there. To our right, there was a couple of lionesses. When they got to within an unsafe distance, if you like, the whole elephant line changed shape into a group. The little baby was in the middle, and they passed the lines, and when they felt they were safe, they went single file again. I think elephants are the most amazing animals. I believe that they're the only animal, apart from human, that has a sense of its own mortality. They pass knowledge on down through the generations among themselves. They're absolutely fascinating. This is a photo which succeeded because I cropped it. It also succeeds, I think, because most of the feet are off the ground and there's a great sense of movement. I think it was important when I cropped it to leave the foot in, because it told you there's a lot more going on. I cropped the top part off, and you could see the faces of 2 other elephants. If I'd left that on, the focus wouldn't have been on the little one. So again, I'm emphasizing post-production crop. My personal belief is if you're adverse to that, I think you're missing out. This is one of my early successes of getting a picture I had in my mind. I wanted a mountain gorilla facing me with rain on it. And as you can see, I got it. When we were trekking up the, this was year 2009, I think it was. This was my first trip to the mountain gorillas in Rwanda. And when we were walking up the hill, getting close, I was really pleased because it started to rain. And I was lucky I had my rain protective gear on the camera. And this guy was munching away in the bushes. He is the lead. He's the blackback. There is the silverback and there's the blackback. He will be the silverback one day. His name, as you can see, is Kagoma. When he was finished munching, he turned to face me, only for a second, and I nearly fell over getting the shot. As it happens, it was the last shot of the day. He came forward and came right between us, and if I didn't move, he would have pushed me over. It was absolutely amazing, absolutely magical. If you get a chance, go and see them. This, I only recently knew I had this. I took it ages ago, but I only recently knew that I had it. And there's a lesson here. And when you take pictures anywhere, it doesn't have to be wildlife photography, it could be anywhere. And you go home, and you get the good ones out, and you look at them, and you do what you do with them, you print them, and then you put the others aside. But I think you must always go back and have another look at what you did. Because when you are more separated in memory from the event that you took the picture, your expectations, if you like, of what you wanted to get are lessened. And you go back and you discover gems that you didn't know you had. I do encourage you, if you do have pictures that you took quite some time ago and you haven't looked at them for a long time, go back and have another look. This is another picture too where I would be very, very tempted to clone stuff out like here. I think it would improve the image a lot. But if I do that, it'll open a can of worms for me, and I wouldn't know where to stop. But I just loved the expression on his face. The one that I first showed you, the one that I called Embracing the Wind, the black and white one with the felon, it's the same lion, taken a minute apart. I don't know why I couldn't apply the same black and white treatment to that one as I did the other one. It didn't work. It was better in colour. When I took this picture, it was another case, because I just, like I said, I'm going to make no apology for all these lion pictures, because I just like lions. But it's the eyes, you know, it's all about the eyes. And he was just there messing about. I forget what he was doing, but I was low. I was low because I wanted to get rid of the messy, grassy background and just isolate the background. I was low in the car, and again, it was a long time before he looked at me. He looked at me for must have been a few seconds, and that was enough. So, very happy to get that one. And it's also, with the black and white dodging with black pictures, there is a certain, obviously you can do it in colour. I did bring out some texture here, if you can see that on the screen. There's a bit of texture here, and this was rather bright, so I had to put that back in and burn it back in. Because don't forget, it's quite a legitimate thing to do, because your eye has a far greater dynamic range than any sensor or film. So what you're doing is expanding that dynamic range again to replicate what your eye saw. This is during a crossing, river crossing in the Mara River. I saw some vultures flying about above, and I thought it was worth a picture. It's quite hard. I think that was about 6,400, ISO 6,400, I think. That. Only reason why I'm showing you this, because he is my favourite lion. His name is Notch. And it's called Notch because of that. Notch. And every time I go back to Kenya, we look out for him. He's a magnificent red-maned lion. He's got 4 sons that look like him. And I haven't seen it yet, but to see 5 of those in one go coming at you would be quite amazing. He is the world's most famous wild lion. He's in Big Cat Diary, he's on TV shows and all the rest of it. He's getting on now. It's going to be a sad day when he passes on. I'm going to bang on about cropping again. This image was not successful when I first took it. The original uncropped version had the feet in the grass. That was good. But the top part, there's more of it, but it clipped the top ear off. And to me, it spoiled the whole picture. And I was annoyed that I clipped the top ear off. It made it incomplete. So I thought I'd mess around with it a bit. And I cropped more off the head, and I took his feet off. What I'm left with is one solid, simple shape. I'm not sure if you agree with it or not, but I think in this case, taking the feet off kind of worked. It makes it look very imposing and looks like he's really on top of you. I'm saying the wrong thing, it's a she. This is one of Notch's sons. And like I said, the mane and the colour, it's so photogenic. Once again, I got down low. And what that did, getting down low, it split the picture. You got the grass out of focus, and you got blue. If I stood up and I took that picture, I wouldn't have got that blue. This is another picture which I've never decided would I like in colour or black and white. I'm not sure what you prefer. This was a happy accident. This was 2010, and we stayed at a camp where there was a main crossing point. It's one of the very few places in Masai Mara where you can be out of your vehicle when this is happening. And we were on the riverbank. Let's just say that's the river. I was standing here. And they were crossing from the back curtain. There were 10,000 of them. It took 2 hours. And they were coming out either side of us like this. And I really thought I blew it because I forgot to take my wide-angle lens in my rush down to the riverside. And I had an image I really wanted, and I didn't get it. I only had a 7200. And the only way I could get them all in was to pull it back to 70 and go up like that. And like I said, it was a happy accident. It's one of my favorites. They're taken at the same time. This was the other one that made the final last year, out of the 3. This is the other one where I can tone it blue. This has got a blue tint. Now, what I want to say about this is about, not so much about cropping, but this whole megapixel thing, big megapixels in cameras. This was taken with a Nikon D700 at the time, which is a 12 megapixel camera. This has got so much crop on it, it's probably a 5 megapixel picture. And I've had this blown up in size to almost as big as what you see there. And nobody has said it looks soft and grainy. Again, what I'm saying is, to me, this photo was emphasis on a 24, 36 megapixel cameras. It's not going to improve things for you as much as you think. I print my pictures, and I sell a few of these. And like I said, nobody's ever complained, said, oh, it's a bit soft. It just works. It just works. A 4 or 5 megapixel picture. On the same day, the same crossing. I like that because I like the little S shape that they're forming. The river current pushes them down. They cross, they actually meant to go like that. Oof. But the river crossing pushes them down. I was able to be in the position I was because there were no crocodiles. If there's any crocodiles, we would not have been anywhere near that. With all of this, there's always something that you haven't got. There's always something that I want. There's always a particular shot I'm looking for, and there's been some special shots I've been looking for a long time. And on my last photo shoot, I was very pleased I got it. I've been wanting to tick this box for many years. I did that last week. It's Butterfly Creek. I always wanted to see a giant weta. I think Megan knows about this, don't you? I thought about this a little bit, and it's all very well. You know, I'm in London. I get down to Kenya relatively easily. What do you do in New Zealand? It's a little bit tricky. I mean, obviously there's no lions and elephants in New Zealand, that kind of thing. But this took a phone call. And the people at Butterfly Creek were so... It was Katie. Katie Prosser was going to be here today. They were so helpful. They were so welcoming. They were so good to us. You know, what this is all coming to is that you want to take good wildlife photographs. Going out with a camera and just seeing what you can find is not going to work as well as if you didn't have a plan. And your photos, you need some kind of purpose. You need to know what you want. Okay, look, I wanted a weta. I wanted a weta face on. I wanted doing that and that. I was fairly successful. I was happy with it. When I'm traveling into Kenya, I have a very good idea what I want. You also need to know what you're going to do with them. It's all very well having these pictures, but if you know what you're going to do with them, then it just makes everything, it gives everything a purpose. So the planning that some of the guys I know do in England, it's just 6 months of planning to get a few shots. Like I said, just picking up the camera and walking into a forest or a beach or something. Yeah, you get lucky, it happens, it works, but I think you increase your chances when you've got a purpose, when you can know what you want to do and what you want to do with them later on. I'm going to be here for about another hour or so, I think. But I really want to thank Rachel and Melanie. They made this whole thing happen. They made the whole week happen for me. It was a privilege to be asked. And I also want to thank you all very much for coming. It's been great.